up because we'll move to my G.A.S or pass.
Okay.
So my G.A.S or pass is the Neural Quad Cortex.
Okay.
It's not really our bag of stuff to get
No,
into
it's not.
most of the time. And so we immediately would go to pass
Mm-hmm.
for 90% of these type of modelers. But you're talking like $1,700. You've got all these amps out there. Of course, you can capture them or whatever they call them out there for your own amps. But the neural stuff also has all the overdrives and all the delays and all that type of stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
The knobs or the foot switches are like knobs where you can turn them and switch stuff. It's touch screen.
Right.
Everybody went crazy for this thing when it came out to the point where they were back ordered forever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're great, but it's all based in a floor unit. Do you have any inkling? I know you've talked about Kempers in the past sometimes, and you're kind of like on the fence occasionally with them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want it for your main rig, but sometimes for like a practice thing, it would be
For
cool
a practice
to have.
or a backup.
Is this Neural Quad Cortex kind of in the same boat for you? Or is it kind of like the big Helix where you're like not interested in it?
I think it's got, first of all, it's option paralysis. There's too much involved. I mean, there is in the Helix stuff too. I mean, even just the HX Stomp is a lot to go through for me. Like the HX1 is about my capacity. So it's probably a pass for me, but I do think it's, this and Kemper and the HX Helix stuff and all that. It's changing the game with guitar. I wasn't, before I got into this band that I'm playing in now, I was so against plugging straight in. And I still am. Like, I still want my amp. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
But there's some convenience to it where you plug straight in and you got your sound. Levels and as far as like being inspired is going to be different. I get that. But the convenience of it is something to be said for that. Now, I don't feel personally like I want to pay $1,700 for something that I'm not really that inspired by. You know what I mean? Like, a cool practice rig, great. But again, I don't want to spend $1,700 on that.
Right.
So, I like the idea of it, but man, for that price point, it just doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah. A lot of people would like to say that, but $1,700, I mean, that's the price of one good amp. And there's hundreds of amps in here.
Right. And then there's thousands of pedals and all that.
Yeah.
I do get it. But for the tones that I'm looking for, I know what I like. I know what I don't like for the most part. I don't know. I found what works for me, and I don't deviate too much from that.
Yeah, and I get that option paralysis thing too. So I've got too many options. I just don't know what to choose. I'm probably going to play with it and get into it and find 2 or 3 sounds that I really love, and that's all I'm going to use.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, why don't you just get those 2 or 3 amps and call it a day?
Right.
Or amps that are similar. You're probably not going to be quite as inspired, for me, as what I would be if I had a real amp behind me. There's so many reasons for me not to enjoy a Quad Cortex.
Mm-hmm.
But there is something to the practice tools of being able to toss it down and be able to play with it. But boy, $1,700 is a lot.
Yeah, and isn't the Kemper standalone on the floor, isn't that like $1,300?
It's somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
close.
To me, I would just go that route anyways. It's cheaper, and Kemper's a big name. I mean, it's going to have everything I would need.
There's so many options out there today that I think, honestly, for most people, the all-in-one solution is, maybe I'm wrong, but I think the all-in-one solution is kind of going by the wayside. I don't think it's as popular anymore. I don't think anyone has the thought of, if I buy this one thing, I'm not anyone. I think a lot of people are realizing that they can't just buy one thing and it gives them everything they want out of it.
What do you mean?
Like, if you buy the Quad Cortex, like, you might not love all the delays that are in there. Yeah, there's a million delays in there, but you got to fight through them and you got to tweak them.
All the screens.
And then they realize, well, if I just had like a solid good amp out of this Quad Cortex and then I threw a couple pedals on top of it, it's going to work out well. And then before you know it, you got this giant board that's bigger and heavier than what an amp would be with a couple pedals.
Right.
Where you've got this really complicated setup. I think people are realizing that the all-in-one thing is, you can make it work, but it's probably not what you prefer. It does have a convenience factor for if you're playing in a band and need to go direct or something really quick. It's easy and not a problem. But if you're trying to really get the best sound and the best experience playing, that it's not necessarily the route to go.
Yeah.
So the whole point of it is a gas or pass.
It's a pass for me.
It's a pass for you, and it's also a pass for me.
Yep.